now I really want to jump in this because you've mentioned it a couple times. So you work for a distributor, and a lot of the people on the podcast don't really know what that is. I'd love to kind of go into what the difference is between like a distributor and like one of these big W-2 companies, like, let's just say Stryker, Medtronic, Johnson Johnson, what everybody knows. That's like where you could be a W-2 and talk about the difference of a distributorship and even in like compensation. But also, I want this for the listeners of education. Like, we talked about some need a 4-year degree. Well, in a distributor route, maybe you don't. And so I'd just love to touch on all that for the listeners.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll try and explain that as best as possible.
Yeah.
I might be a little convoluted, but when you work for a distributor, like I work for Unified, I have a distributor principal, and then these companies like don't hire direct reps. So they go towards my distributor and like pretty much say, hey, do you guys do you want a line? Or my distributor reaches out to them saying, hey, I want a recon line. So that company will then use our sales force to get to sell their stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, I don't work direct for that company. I'm an independent contractor. I have these lines that I represent, but I don't work direct for them. So the big thing with that is I'm a 1099 and a direct rep is W-2. And what that means is the W-2 reps can only sell that company's products. When you're an independent contractor like myself that works for a distributorship, we can carry multiple different companies' products as long as they're not the same.
Yep.
Like they're not the same products. Like I can't sell a distal radius with plate with one company and the other company also has it. And I can't sell both plates going in with everything.
Yep.
So non-competing products I could sell, and they don't care if I bring on more stuff. So for me, our distributorship pretty much has an entire orthopedic bag. There are some companies like Zimmer and a few others that don't just do recon, but like for the most part, like there are companies that if you're a recon and joint rep, you're not a trauma rep. And you're limited to the opportunities of what you could sell. Mm-hmm. And you're only allowed to sell that certain specialty, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Whereas when you're a distributorship principal, there's nothing really holding you back. You can sell upper extremity, you can sell joints, you can do trauma, you can do biologics, you can do oncology. If I want, I mean, I have non-surgical things that I sell that's in my quote unquote bag. But that's the beauty of being a 1099. The biggest beauty of being a 1099 is the write-offs and the tax benefits. So, I mean,
I think that's a big thing to touch on real quick, because like a 1099, you're your own business.
Exactly. Which sometimes when you're first starting off, it is a little difficult until you start getting your own business. Because just figuring out what I could write off, and you have to find a good tax accountant, which, I'm 5 years in, I'm still trying to find a good accountant. But the thing with that is like all your gas, your everything for your business, you have to pay out of your pocket. At the end of the year, you can write it off, but you're not paying like, these huge tax brackets. You're able to hold on to your money and I don't.
So no, a good point.
I have to talk about that.
No, yeah, good point. Like I'm just saying, so like for my company, they give me a car and they pay for my gas. They give me a gas card, yes. Right? So I don't ever worry about it. It just goes to the company. They do that. And then what Leah's saying is like, so since I'm a W-2, I get a certain, like what my base and my salary and whatever I make, I'm getting taxed on all that. I'm not writing anything off. I'm getting taxed on, let's say I make 100K. If I make 100K, I'm getting taxed on the whole 100K.
At least like 30, at least here in California, it's like 35%.
No, exactly.
So if he makes an extra 100K, he's getting he's $35,000 of that 100K is getting taken away by taxes. And whereas you can kind of like write off and bring that number down a little bit more and outset your.
Exactly. So like if you made 100K, but again, you had expenses, and let's say it was $25,000 for the year, well, you're only going to get taxed on the 75K, not the whole 100. So again, we're not tax professionals. It's
Yeah,
just
I'm like, I don't want to like get into this like
no,
too
yeah,
much.
it's just
I'm not
something
really
to
good at explaining that
it's
part,
just
but
something to like. I know I'll get comments. They'll be like, "You guys are idiots," like because I've had that before. But like,
yeah.
just the thing is to understand a W-2. I don't worry about it. Basically, I get paid for everything. My company takes care of it, and then I get taxes taken out. Compared to with Leo as a 1099, it's her own business, and she's having to do this stuff.
And that sounds bad, like it's a bad thing. Like, oh, I don't want to deal with like my own, like getting an accountant and writing all this stuff off. The pros of it are you're paying less in taxes,
Yep.
a lot less, significantly less, honestly. And you get nobody's telling you what you can and can't sell.
Yep.
So your opportunities are much bigger than if you're just working for one company. There are companies that have the big name, and it's like, oh, that sounds really great to want to work for the bigger companies, but it's, I don't know, it's then they kind of like can limit to you as like, okay, well that's all you can sell and that's about it.
Well, and that's perfect because I want to kind of transition this to like this part, like exactly what you're saying. Everybody sees the big names and that's what they want to. And everybody who calls me, I challenge them on that because for first off, I think it's like the Harvard thing, right? People talk about Harvard just so they can go to Harvard or so they can
Yep.
talk about going to Harvard. But know who
Mhm.
cares? The only people who care are the people like wanting to go to Harvard. Otherwise, like for me, I'm like I could care less where I work. If one's paying 100K more, who cares if it's Joe Schmo's Medical or wherever it's at? If I have the opportunity, again, as long as it aligns with everything, that's what people really forget about. But also, what you're saying is like, if I go work for a big company, maybe I don't believe in every or like my product or all this different stuff, but I'm limited to just this. But like, if you're in a 1099 and you're able to pick up different lines, maybe you can
Yeah.
have different options. And also, I say this all the time for me is like, well, if I only sell a certain product, well, I can only go see a doctor about that certain product. But like you're saying is
Exactly.
if you have a bunch of different stuff, well, you can go pick up a line. Now you can go
Yeah.
see a doctor about something else, and maybe it leads into something
Well,
else for you.
so just like a real time situation is, there's joint reps, there's trauma reps. Some companies have both together, but for me, if a patient has a fractured proximal humerus, and you can either fix it with a plate or with a reverse shoulder. Okay, sometimes there's a rep in the room that's for the proximal humor, like for the reverse shoulder, and then there's another rep in the room for the proximal humerus plate, the plate and screws. So what they have to do is they bring all their stuff in the day before. They come in the day of the case. They wait around. Maybe sometime now the case is delayed 3 hours. You wait 3 hours for the case. You go into the room, and the doctor opens it up and says, "Yeah, there's no way I'm fixing this. I have to replace the whole shoulder." Now the rep that just did all that work to get all those trays there the day before goes sit there for 4 hours. Now they just lost out and they have nothing to go. Whereas like for me, I have the whole bag and I'm able to bring on the whole bag and I'm not going to lose out in the case.
Yeah.
I
And
can.
and that's huge. And then the one thing I did want to just touch on that because people will be like asking this, I know, is let's talk about like pay a little bit. And I'm not saying like actually saying how much you make or anything, but kind of like the breakdown. So for example, like with distributors, is it eat what you kill? Is it base plus salary? Like how do they do it that way?
Everyone is, I've talked to a lot of distributorships and I've seen so many different models. Some models, like a distributorship here in LA, what they do is everyone's commission kind of goes into one pot and then it gets separated. Um, I don't know. I don't think that's the right way. I know that sounds awful. Yes, like the stragglers are paying their dues and delivering trays and whatnot, but I think in every organization there's always 20% of the people are the ones that are bringing everything in and 80% are the stragglers. And I don't know. I love my team. They're my best. I hope no one's listening to this. But for the way our like my distributorship works is we get a salary, some kind of base to like help and that base is like, okay, well, you have to help that person on the other side of town, or you have to go do that. And it kind of just covers the ground. So it makes us want to help each other, if that makes sense. And then we get paid if we bring on business, we get a commission off of that business.
Yep.
But then like there's people, some distributor routes where, because the distributors are on their own, like there's not money just getting fed to the distributors to go
Yep.
sell it. You know what I mean? Like our base salaries aren't just like, all right, well, here's money to just pay your reps. It's not like that. This is coming out of my distributors' pockets, all about like how everything's working and based off of business. So he's pretty much for my distributor. We're in the field every day. He's pretty much eat what you kill. and hiring people on and just hoping that they bring more business on to help feed the pot for all of us to keep going, if that makes sense. So it
100%.
just depends on, like, there are distributor reps that they literally are just spending for themselves and they live off of every single paycheck. And now that we're like where I've come, my guarantee is, oh, and then there's other guarantees where they'll say, all right, here's $60,000 a year, but if you want to make more, you have to kind of like even out your guarantee of bringing enough business to like offset your guarantee, and then anything more, then you'll start making more on top of that.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Like it kind of offsets.
100%.
So it really just comes down to the distributorship model and what their team's working.
They decide
When
to
it's
do.
pretty much like on your own, then I feel like then people don't want to help each other kind of in a way.
Yeah.
But I think anybody getting into this industry, before they say yes, really figure out the team dynamics, because you're not going to go anywhere without a team, especially for like an ortho. Like we have to be in every single case. I don't know for you, like sometimes you can have cases going without you being there.
Exactly. Yep.
We have to be in every single, anytime a screw's going in, we have to be there. Anytime, like it's very rare of the cases, like of the type of cases that I don't have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for that, you really have to have a good team and model of who's going to help you and who's going to have your back too.
100%. And the thing I do want to just touch on for everyone who's listening, like she said, each distributor is going to be different. Like some might do just eat what you kill. Some might do a base with a, yeah. And when we say base or salary, everyone's like, they think salary is guaranteed, right? Like if I say app plan, they think it's their salary. No, like if we're saying like a salary, let's say you make 100K, maybe $40,000 is a base guaranteed. That's what you're going to get. They split up monthly, and then the 60,000 comes out of commission and what you have to actually earn, eat what you kill, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
There's everybody's going to do it different. Even with the big companies, everybody's going to do it a little different. From what I've seen when I've talked to a lot of people, at least in the spaces I'm in, it's going to be like half of it or some of it's going to be a base and some of it's going to be commission. It's going to be split. But I know some other ones more in like ortho, after a couple of years they'll actually go more just eat what you kill commission, because on average for those guys, they're probably going to make more money if they did that compared to if they were just sitting on a base,
Exactly.
3-4 years in. So just something to consider. But the one thing I really want to touch on with Leah is like, I get people who reach out who they've had experience in sales. They've done it since they were 18, 19, but they didn't go get that 4-year degree, and when those big companies are like, you can't get in, there might be ways around it, but there's some with HR, you just can't, right? Like they need the 4-year degree. But this is what we were talking about with a distributorship. It might be a way around it to break into medical device sales, get that experience, and again, not have to go back and get that 4-year degree. Because again, if you can break in and show your worth and you've crushed it, you don't need to go to these giant companies, but also go into it. So I would love to talk about that real quick.
No, and just for everyone to like know, I am a huge promoter of going 1099. If I had to do this all over again, I would do it all over, the same thing, no different. I don't know if I would actually ever work W2 now.
Yep.
And a lot of 1099 reps will say that, like, until you get used to it, it's like, just because you're not used to it in the beginning, or used to like these nice fancy packages to like sign on bonus. Like, I don't know what sign on bonuses, but like healthcare and like $200 a month for your health insurance that you have to pay as an independent contractor. You trust the process. That $200, it's a write-off. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be a bothersome in a year or two. But just, I'm like I just want to make sure I say that, like, I will never be W2. I like 1099. So anybody that doesn't have a 4-year degree and you need to go the 1099 route, it's not like you have to do anything less. Like, it's less important. Like, it's honest. I personally feel it's better than W2.
Oh,
but that's my opinion.
No, and I love it. No, and I love that. And I'm glad you said that, because I'll just be honest. Like, everybody knows that I was a personal trainer before this. I still have my own LLC. I still do 1099. There's business stuff that I do. And just like you're saying, there's a freedom that comes when you're 1099, but most people don't. Like, again, I work with a lot of business owners. You learn about the freedom and stuff that comes when you own your own business. And so most people don't want to think about it.
Freedoms aren't as nice as like as good as freedom sounds. Like, oh, I have to pay for that myself. I guess I don't really like that freedom
No,
of it.
no, exactly. No, and then there is that stuff. No, 100%. And that's what we talk about. Everybody's going to be different, right? Because I talk to people, they're like, I don't want to think about it. I just want to get paid a certain amount, and then my tax get, and that's it, right?
See, but that mindset to me doesn't scream sales.
No, 100%. And trust me, I get you with that, right?
Like,
I'm right back at you.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, when I first started, I'm like, all right, I need you to tell me how long you think it's possible, like realistically possible that I could be making $200,000 a year. Like, I was like, I'm ready. You tell me what I have to do, and I'll do whatever it takes.
It's
like, just tell me what I need to do.
Same
to
thing.
Like, get to that point.
Well, no, it's funny to me. I was just saying this to one of my buddies, because I actually the last podcast was like, you shouldn't do sales if you're not thinking you're going to make it, right? Like, because I get there, like, how do you know if it's the wrong choice? And I was like, good Lord, like, you're going into sales. But
yeah,
my talk is like, nobody's ever asked me, and I'm like, well, I hope I perform at like 80%. I'm like, I'm gonna crush my number. Like, and even just like now, just so you guys know, like, I got shouted out on the company call today. I just closed a giant deal. I'm over quota again, a year and a half in. So again, it's fun, but like, I joke around just like you. I've never been like, what if I don't perform? It's like, what do I have to do? And like you said, when we're talking big numbers, I told people when I was trying to break in, I was like, I was a trainer working 100 hours a week, making $30,000-$40,000. I was like, you show me an opportunity to financially change my life. You haven't even seen anything yet.
It gets addicting. It's exciting, and if money thrills you, like, one big interview question, I guess we'll talk to what I'm looking for in like someone.
And we can transition into that right now if you'd like to, because again, I just wanted to get across to everybody that if you don't have a 4 year degree, you don't have to get one to go into medical device sales. There's other ways around it, and it's just doing your research
and putting the work in.
Yeah, 100%. And being hungry.
Be hungry, because people will see that. Like, I don't know, be prepared. Do the obvious, like, resume techniques, and I don't know, we'll get into that too. But I think the biggest, when it comes down to being hungry, is just know your why and why you're doing this. And that's like the best advice I could do.